Thank you for your time. Want to
Thanks,
let you
Michael.
respond as the trustee and executive vice president of the Trump Organization. The news that Associated Press and among others reported yesterday that the Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance Jr., fighting to get your father's tax returns, says he's justified in demanding them because of public reports, quoting here, of extensive and protracted criminal conduct at the Trump Organization. Your response?
I think first of all, it's absolutely crazy. You've seen how they've come after us, Michael, from literally the fake Russia hoax to the Ukrainian nonsense. You saw what they did to Kavanaugh. You see what they do to us every single day. They see how they persecute our family. I mean, they will try and get my father in any way, shape, or form, and it's wholly unfair. I hope no president in history has ever treated this poorly. The way they weaponize the legal system, the way they go after him, what the House does, what the Senate does. I mean, it's really unbelievable. My father's done a phenomenal job for this country. He fights every single day, and he fights despite all this nonsense, all this distraction on the side, and that's all this is. And I think Americans realize exactly what, there's only so many times you can cry wolf, and before you lose all credit with the American people, and they're probably 3 or 4 times past that.
So you are confident and willing to say to the American public, to Floridians who have to make up their minds, that there will be no criminal conduct?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident saying that the Russia hoax was a hoax because they came out and said it was a hoax. I'm pretty confident saying that the Ukraine thing was a hoax because that was a hoax. I'm pretty confident saying that they tried to destroy Brett Kavanaugh's life with another hoax, and they failed at that one too. And yeah, I'm pretty confident, having sat in my chair for the last 3.5 years, to say every single one of our family members, from Barron Trump, who's a 14-year-old boy, to Tiffany, a girl who just graduated college, to my own children who are 1 and 3 respectively, to me every single day, and Don and Ivanka and Melania and our whole family, is attacked every single day savagely by these people because they dislike my father, and they're upset that a guy who the New York Times gave 1.9% chance of winning the national election to won in a landslide, and will probably do it again in 92 days. And we're looking, by the way, very, very good in Florida. So yes, I can confidently say that.
Let me ask you, polling, you say he'll win in a landslide, so you're looking at your internal polls. At least according to one poll, presumptive Democratic nominee leads President Trump by 4 points in battleground Florida. That's close to or within a margin of error. It's a Mason-Dixon poll. He won by 1.2% in 2016, and yet in battleground state after battleground state, he is either very close or behind. So what gives you the confidence that he'll make up those margins?
Yeah, well, I'm a numbers guy, first of all. There's a massive silent, majority. There's a massive silent majority. We did a poll recently. 78% of people didn't feel comfortable telling people what political party that they're affiliated with, because we live in something called the cancel culture. If you disagree with the radical left, you're canceled. And so people want to be quiet. And again, 78% of people are very uncomfortable, saying which political party that they're affiliated with, which I think bodes very well for us. Second of all, I'm a numbers guy. I read the backup to all these polls, and I'd encourage you to do so as well. In fact, I'd encourage any reasonable journalist to. And when you see them oversampling Democrats by 11, 12% versus Republicans, when in fact in 2016, the sample might have been +1, D+1, D+2. So these polls and these pollsters who were clearly there in 2016, they did the same thing back then, are again oversampling Democrats by 9, 10, 11, 12%, depending on the poll that you look at. And then they say he's 4 points behind. That actually means we win. That means we win. And you're going to have a silent majority who's much more enthusiastic about my father than they are Biden. I mean, you have a guy who literally called Arizona City the other day. He said he was running for United States Senate when he's running for commander-in-chief. The guy can't get through a sentence. He won't take questions from reporters, and it's unfortunate, but most reporters won't call him out on it. No one's asking, where's Biden? In fact, the New York Times is encouraging Biden not to show up at the debates, if you can possibly believe, one of the biggest newspapers in the country encouraging a presidential candidate not to show up for a debate. But I feel very, very good about Florida. You see the boat parades. You see those pictures where you have literally thousands and thousands of boats going up the intercoastal and along the West Coast. The enthusiasm has never been stronger. And I can tell you our voters are going to get out there, and we're going to win in November. And we're on the right side of this fight between kind of American way of life and socialism. And we're going to win. We're going to win.
I want to do two follow-up questions, one on COVID, one on what is
Please.
evolving into a law and order campaign. But because you brought it up, you brought up, in essence, former Vice President Biden's mental acuity, and yet all you have to do is tap in the president's name on the internet, and you see questions about his mental acuity and ability. Mental health professionals, one article said they've expressed concern over what they see as Donald Trump's declining faculties. Bandy Lee, a psychiatrist from the Yale School of Medicine, one of those who helped author that report. Is it a slippery slope when we start questioning the mental ability of either candidate, given criticisms of both? And also when you have an elderly population in Florida that one author said might not take kindly to questions about that?
No, well, listen, I think Biden should actually get out on the stand and let people judge for themselves, right? Isn't that what a campaign's all about? Let him go out, let him take difficult questions. The problem is you're not asking Biden questions. He wouldn't let you ask him questions. He wouldn't allow an interview like the one that we're doing right now. There's no way he would be spitballing like this. He's very controlled by his campaign. The people that he goes in front of are very, very scripted. The questions are pre-approved. Half the time he's reading off of a teleprompter. This isn't Ronald Reagan, that much I can tell you. This isn't Donald Trump, who, my father answered 20-something questions yesterday alone. Biden hasn't answered a question in 2 weeks. They won't let him out of his basement. And I do think you do really need to, and listen, it's a horribly awful thing to talk about, but when a presidential candidate calls Arizona a city, and when he says that he's running for the United States Senate, when he's running for commander-in-chief, and he just said, he talked about the 2020 census, which was 8 years ago. I mean, I do think that somebody's got to ask the question. I mean, I think that's only appropriate. And I wish you could be asking him the same very question that we're talking about right now. Unfortunately, he won't grant you an interview, and he won't grant CNN an interview, and he won't grant Fox an interview, and he won't sit down with Chris Wallace, and he won't sit down on 60 Minutes, and he won't take real questions. And why do you think that is? And I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure out that either he's being very controlled by his campaign, or they're just afraid of what he'll say on the stand. And I do think that has to be exposed.
Briefly on COVID, NBC News Survey Monkey weekly poll said 58% of Americans say they don't trust what your father has to say about the coronavirus pandemic. 31% do trust him. Now, there was a big split. Republicans had a lot of faith in what he's saying. Democrats, very much the opposite. But given the overall number that they're quoting, can he win as the field general on the COVID response, given that overall lack of faith, at least according to this poll, on his response to COVID?
Listen, I don't know, Survey Monkey, or I don't know what poll that is. What I can tell you is, you had Joe Biden. When my father turned off, all flights to China and all access to China to stop the spread, even when, Dr. Fauci and others said that it wasn't necessary, you had Joe Biden come out, and you had Nancy Pelosi, and you had all these other Democrats, these leftist Democrats came out and say that's xenophobic, and that's this, and that's that, and this is racist, and his moves are undercutting, diplomatic, blah, blah, blah. They were all coming in, and guess what? Now they say he should have shut it down earlier. They should have shut it down. I mean, he literally shut it off before the CDC told him to close down. The World Health Organization told him to close down the borders. That's how ahead of the whole thing, he was. And again, they called him all these names for doing it. They didn't think it was sensitive. They didn't think it was sensitive to, other countries of the world. And now they're coming back and, second guessing him. I mean, the hypocrisy is truly incredible of the whole thing. My father's done a phenomenal job. You saw what he did with ventilators. You see what he did with, personal protective equipment. And by the way, proved his point the entire time. They should have been manufacturing that in the United States as opposed to sending those jobs over to China. It's literally what he won the 2016 campaign on, that we need to be self-reliant in terms of the essential goods, in terms of pharmaceuticals here in America. And, had past administrations listened to him or thought the same way, we probably would have been in a very different situation.
Final quick question for you in our remaining time. It's turning into a law and order campaign in many respects. Reuters said in their own poll that white suburbanites were split 21% to 21% between the economy and healthcare. And in their poll, only 6% who identify as white and living in the suburbs said crime was their biggest concern. Moreover, Joe Biden has argued, the former vice president has said, you all are scaremongering with ads that suggest he wants to defund the police. He said that is absolutely not true. Your response?
It's not. He said he wanted to take law enforcement funds, and he wanted to reallocate them. I mean, He said that blatantly. I'll send you the clip after this interview is done, but he absolutely wants to take those funds and he wants to reallocate them. And, when I see the most incredible people in this country, which are law enforcement, are the men and women in blue, and they're having bricks thrown at their head in Portland. And in Seattle, you just had a couple law enforcement officers that permanently lost their vision because you have Antifa shining lasers in their eyes. So now they're permanently blind. They get to go home to their husband or wife, blind, never able to see them again. And guess what? You don't have Joe Biden call them out for the anarchy that this is. And these cities are being run by, liberal mayors, liberal governors. They're not. I mean, it's really unbelievable to me. You don't have the Democratic Party coming out and condemning this. They burned a church in Washington, D.C. They took over, a police barracks in Minneapolis. They're trying to burn a courthouse in Seattle. And guess what? They're silent. They're silent on the left, and that's not who we are as a country. The people of this country, the people of Florida, they love the men and women of blue, the state troopers, the sheriffs, everybody. I mean, they love law enforcement. They believe in law and order in society. They believe in standing for the American flag. They love red, white, and blue in this country. And, what's happening in these cities is fundamentally not American. And the fact that the Democrats are silent to it makes them, quite frankly, in my opinion, complicit.
Eric Trump, we thank you for taking time to join us.
Thank you very much.